Hello, welcome back to another argumentation video. Again, I've changed my shooting situation because I'm never quite happy with it. So hopefully this is nice because you have natural light outside. It's a beautiful, crisp, cool day in New York City, and I like the natural lighting a lot better than the studio lighting. So I think we're going to shoot like this from now on. And a lot of you have been watching these videos and you're not in my class, which is cool. But just, shoot me a comment, hit like, subscribe if you want to see more of the videos. I'm doing a lot of different video series right now. And they're coming out pretty regularly, hopefully more regularly in the coming weeks as we move from winter into spring. We'll have more and more and more videos at a regular time. So hopefully you'll like them and continue to like them and continue to watch them. This video is a continuation of the last debate video, which was about how you set up a case and the importance of setting up a case. I want to point out that these are not the secrets of competitive debaters or anything. These are everyday debating ideas. They're for everyone. A debate is a perspective more than it is a specialized discursive form meant for special people, just for certain kinds of people. That's kind of what we think of debate. But I want you to start to think of debate as a perspective that we take on serious questions of inquiry so that we can see where we are and where we might need to be and what might be left out of our thinking. Helps us take stock of what we really don't know more than knowing what's right or what we do know or anything like that. So keep that in mind. So we're going to look at what can you say in a debate. You have your thesis, you have your case, you know what kind of motion you're talking about. What is it that you can actually say as you build up the case? Well, I've thought of 4 different things that are 4 different places you can go to brainstorm and think about what you might want to say. Claims of principle, claims of experience, claims of expertise, and claims of cause. Maybe claims of expertise is what most people think a debate is about, is who's got the better facts, who's got the superior research intellect on their side, who's got the truth on their side as determined by scientific rigor in the creation of facts. That's only 1/4 of what I'm presenting about today. And I'm going to spend the least amount of time on it because it's so familiar to you probably. Claims of cause might be the next most popular, but the other 2 are ones we don't really talk about at all because we sort of dismiss them. So I'd like to spend more time on those first 2. So the first place I'd like you to go when you're thinking about how to put together your debate and what to say, you have your thesis down, you kind of know where you are. What do I say? Claims of principle. These are the questions of what are the underlying values that guide our decisions and choices. What are the assumptions of good, importance, and intense value that govern our policies? So claims of principle are when you root what it is you want the audience to agree with you on in terms of what are our most cherished values. What are the most cherished guideposts of ethical or moral action that we as a society must believe? And these don't often come out publicly. They're often not expressed. And the reason for that is they're difficult to talk about. But in a debate, you can say, our principle must be this because of these policies that none of us would ever speak out against. There are certain policies or certain practices of society that we would never want to be without. And the reason we don't want to be without them is because they are reflective of a deeply held principle we must believe in, even if we don't overtly articulate it. So you're not going to find any research people saying, well, here's what our principles are in a direct way in public policy debates or in any kind of public debates on value or what we stand for, or stasis of definition debates, which we seem to be in a lot these days in the United States, is what does it mean to be American and what is America and what should it be, normative questions. With a stasis like that, you're not going to get anything overt. But you can go and do some research and say, well, we have these policies, so we must believe in safety. That must be a paramount value. So here's an example to think of when we think about claims of principle. I took the topic from the last lecture, the United States should forgive all student loan debt. So here's some good principle questions to get you thinking about principle-based arguments that you can make if you want to use claim of principle in a debate, which is something you can do. None of these contradict with each other. You can always use all of them to create your case and to make your case palatable to us, to the audience. Okay, so the first one, what is an investment? What does it mean to invest? Is investment a good principle? Is investment something we believe in? Do we invest in people or in practices. What does it mean to be truly free? What's freedom? We all say we believe in freedom, but what's the principle of freedom that we uphold and that we push as a society? What's a principle of freedom we wouldn't be without? What is security? What's protection? What does that look like? What is a good life? And what is responsibility? These all hit principles that on either side of this motion, whether we should forgive all student loan debt or not, are going to come up into play. One thing about it that's interesting with principles is they can reveal a number of different strategies one can take to show that you've got the better side of the topic. So, for example, investment. Do we invest in children? We do quite a bit. There's a lot more social services for children than there are for adults, I would think. I mean, that might need to be researched. Don't take my word for it. What about public education? Why does that cut off at a certain age? What about different state policies investing in entrepreneurs or people who have ideas? What about investment in the arts? Sure, it's not where it should be for a lot of people, but we wouldn't imagine a country or a government that doesn't invest in the arts at all. And certain services, fire, police, the roads, these are all things we invest in for the future. So these things are evidence that we have this principal investment. It doesn't take a lot to think that we should extend that to people and make higher education along the same roads as infrastructure. Well, roads, that was a good pun again. Again, I made a good pun. Along the lines of future investment, it would be a similar kind of thing. So that's the way you would kind of work it out in your head to kind of make this go. But you want to think about what those terms are, those value terms, or those terms of principle guidance and ethical or moral rightness that would come up in these that would be associated with one side or another of this. Responsibility is probably on the negative side. Like when I forgive a huge amount of debt you've taken on, what does that say about responsibility? We want to keep people responsible. We want to forward the idea of responsibility in our culture, and this goes against that. So you can make negative arguments with it too. Let's go to claims of experience. We'll use the same example through all of these. Claims of experience. These would be things that have happened to people, reasonable accounts of what things happen in particular situations, and historical accounts or personal accounts of groups. So these are three different kinds of experience. The first being stories or narratives. This is kind of like journalistic evidence. Stories or narratives of things that have actually happened to people. The second one, reasonable accounts of what things happen to people in particular situations. These aren't real stories of what's really happened to people, but these are situations the audience would be familiar with and what would logically happen in those situations to those people that would be considered reasonable. This is where you invent the situation. There's not a testimony or a real event or a real incident there. These are recognizable moments of what would happen to people in those situations. That would make sense. And the last one would be like group historical trends, like much larger when you're painting a bigger picture of the larger situation. Historical accounts or personal accounts of groups. What happened historically to immigrants? What happened historically to people of color? What's happened historically to women? These kind of pieces of evidence. So let's go to our example and see what we can come up with. So the U.S. should forgive all student loan debt. Stories of things that people with student debt have to do or are unable to do. These would be personal testimonies of what they've had to put off. They weren't able to start their own business. They weren't able to get a house and have a family. They had to pay this thing off, or they weren't able to really do their dream. And I think these stories are very, very persuasive to audiences and a very powerful way to kind of make your point. The potential choices facing those with significant debt. This would be more of the imagined. So if you had significant debt, what are some of the things that are not a possibility for you that are essential or that we would think would be essential to the kind of life that people should have? And what things have to be delayed or put off or denied completely. And you can make that based on logic, based on reason that you explain to the audience. It's something reasonable that they would say, oh yeah, if I was in that situation, that would be the reasonable move. And then finally, experiences foreign to others who cannot benefit from alternative choices. This is the group argument example where you'd say groups of people in society do not get the benefit of having college-educated people doing this nice altruistic work because they have to pay this debt off. You make that kind of argument as the argument I had in mind is like somebody wants to start a clinic for impoverished people or to help young children with a special kind of educational incentive. They can't really do that because they have to pay off all this debt first. A great example of this is law school, legal aid. Lots of people want to do legal aid or want to be a prosecutor or want to be, they want to help people out, but they're unwilling or unable to do it because they have almost $1 million in student loan debt after law school. Does that really benefit us to churn out corporate attorneys, or should we churn out people who have a deep understanding of the law who would want to get paid less in order to feel good about helping other people? Might be the position that we can make there. Okay, next one, claims of expertise. Different kinds of expertise. You might not have thought about this before. This is all I'm going to cover on this one because you kind of know what expertise is. A doctor says, a lawyer says, some expert, and we do this our whole lives. In fact, that's what we think the entire circle of debate is about. We're broadening that today. Institutionally authorized experts who have certification. That's the most common. A doctor at Johns Hopkins says, and a lawyer for the Supreme Court bar says, a constitutional scholar says, and this is what we get a steady diet of all the time. But then there are also credentials from intersubjective verification, which are people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about because other experts have said this person gets it. They know. They don't have the credential. They don't have the experience in the institution, but other credentialed experts say, oh yeah, there's somebody you want to talk to because intersubjectively in our field, we believe them to be a believable expert. And then experiences grant expertise. This would be the Gramscian non-institutional or bottom-up street expertise, people whose lives or interests or hobbies make them as much of an expert as anybody who's gone and gotten the full degree. You see this a lot today in things like computer science, coding, and things like that, where people just have the experience. They don't have a computer science degree, but they can definitely solve the problem the way a professional could. And it's that kind of expertise. So think about this when you're making expert claims. The most obvious ones, we'll look at the example here, forgiving all student loan debt, the testimony of economists, members of Congress, education administrators. The list goes on and on and on. But is there an expert out there who would be non-institutional, non-credentialed who could talk about this? Family members of somebody who's got large student debt, people who do sales, home sales or vehicle sales or other big economic indicators could say what that's like, or people who work in student loan forgiveness offices. They have the experience that makes them an expert, although they're not a credentialed or certified expert to talk about, this kind of stuff. All right, claims of cause. What is likely to happen or what will happen if things are done or left alone? What kinds of things will lead to what kinds of results? That's kind of an interesting one. Like, what categories of things lead to other categories? Like what categories of irresponsibility lead to disastrous social programs? Because there might be some kinds of irresponsibility that would lead to very good economic results. I'll get to that in a second with an example I think is pretty good. And what actions are the definitive cause of certain results? So there is a burden on causal argumentation to say, if you do this, it's going to lead to this, and no other cause will lead to that as significantly as this. Because it might be an easy way to defeat you would be to say, well, that might trend anyway. The stock market might correct anyway. Unemployment might go up anyway. People might suffer anyway. So you have to say, no, this kind of suffering is particular and directly connected to the causes that you are either ignoring or perpetrating in your case. So this is, cause effect. This is a very difficult thing to reason about, and it's changed over the centuries quite a bit. But people let people get away with a lot on this kind of reasoning. So let's think about some examples here. Elimination of debt leads to an increase in spending. So it might be irresponsible to wave a bunch of debt away, but people are going to be irresponsible in a way that benefits us all by buying houses, cars, and a bunch of junk they don't need. That boosts the economy. That's good consumer spending. People in credit card debt, much better for the economy than people who are in educational loan debt, which is, doesn't really do that much for banks. It doesn't really generate that much kind of income for businesses, that kind of thing. That's kind of the weird responsibility argument I was hitting at. Elimination of debt leads to an increase in investing or saving. So you could say, if we remove this, people will make smarter choices with their money, which are better for them, which is better for their longevity, which is better for their quality of life, which is what government should be supporting anyway. The principle of government is to support giving people an excellent life, high quality life that they enjoy, where they can maximize what they'd like to do. That could be an argument. You see how I connected principle there with causation? That happens quite a bit. You can do that. You can connect all of these. They don't contradict with each other. Elimination of debt reduces fiscal responsibility. That's kind of a negative argument. We wouldn't want to do it because what you're going to cause is a dismissal of fiscal responsibility that's going to destroy the country. No one's going to be ready for any kind of emergency, and you create a kind of a monetary and you create a very dangerous economic situation where everyone's going to need to be bailed out at once, and it's going to collapse the economy of the country. And then elimination of debt devalues college, a rare argument that you sometimes see, which is, well, if you don't have to pay this, make this huge investment in it, college doesn't become a special thing anymore that has kind of the admiration of having a college degree that's necessary, is that you put in the money to really invest in that. Kind of a weird argument, but people make it. I don't know if it's convincing to me. It might be convincing to you. I don't know. So those are the 4 different wells you can go to kind of brainstorm what you might think you could put into your case. Principles, experience, expertise, or cause. And think about how do you generate these and which ones you think are going to be best for supporting your position on any motion that you happen to debate.